I feel also that another sign that we're doing well is that some of the divisions that have kind of already been there for a while, that we were kind of that we kind of suffered through before Christmas. I think we all felt that. I think it's part of the reason is because we're now beginning to push at an open door, and there's a little bit of positioning going on. There's a lot of anger that's been bubbling away for a while and is now boiling. And it did lead me to, I don't want to talk about the actual issues there on the show, but it did make me think that maybe our little show is I don't know, maybe we will look out of place if we're still trying to be light and airy and keep things keep things nice when everyone else is demanding that we take very rigorous positions. I've kind of ambushed you with this. I didn't really know I would say it myself, but I hope it's okay to just delve into this a little bit. It was troubling me before Christmas because there was so much pain and anger and sadness, and it was very hard to talk about, and it was it just kind of it just felt like not our show suddenly, And I just wonder whether is it something that we need to think about in terms of strategically or tactically. Is there a point where we go, you know what, the time for our show was there, but maybe it's becoming a different time? Does that make sense?
Yeah, you might be right. Have we said everything that needs to be said? Maybe. I mean, we've made the point. I do think that we have decent guests on, and the guests that we have often have some great insights. Things happen. But yeah. I mean, you might be right.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people. I think we're platforming a lot of really extraordinary, interesting people. And I don't think this issue is going away anytime soon. I mean, sometimes we repeat ourselves making the same points, but it's got to be, these points have to be repeated because there's so much to be remembered. You can't just say things once and assume it's done. You have to repeat your points because people have to hear them to get them in their head.
I think something that we might overlook sort of sitting here is that it is a space for people to come together and talk as well. Mm-hmm. The way that StreamYard works is very good. I noticed that a lot of commentators, they talk to us, they talk to each other. It's a place to come to just have a bit of a breather, to be able to say things that you might not be able to say on Twitter, sort of the normality of being able to say, actually, no, this is wrong. So there's that as well. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I thought it might be. I certainly don't want to come to any hard and fast decisions. And loads of people are writing very nice things in the comments, which makes me think we should go on, because if people still love it, then why would you stop? And also, I think today, like we've only covered today stuff that happened in the last 3 or 4 days. There's so much to talk about. There's so much to talk about. But I just hope that, I'll give you an example. I'll just give one last example before we go on. But someone else just said there, people are ignoring that Hayden uses women's spaces. And that's not true either.
That's not true.
People are spreading lies about this.
This is a real problem. I mean, obviously, I think there's a lot of great stuff going on in the gender critical movement, but there's a small group of people who are causing serious problems. And I think there's a sort of defensiveness where people don't want to address the problems within the movement. I think a strong movement is a movement that says, yes, we have a good cause, we're united in it, but also isn't afraid to call out the problems within its movement. The gay rights movement had to do that. They were pedophiles infiltrating the movement. And they were fighting HIV, they were fighting massive discrimination, but they were also able to look in themselves and say, okay, we do have some problems within our movement. And there are some problems, and there's an instinct to kind of be defensive and to not want to say that there's a problem because, we have a cause that matters. But there are some people who behave pretty badly,
But there's also a problem, I think, with calling this a movement. It isn't really a united movement. You've got feminists who have very, very maybe different goals to maybe some men who might be in the movement who agree. There are definitely some right-wingers who certainly agree on some parts of it, who I actually, but I would absolutely go tooth and nail against in terms of abortion. So I think that there is maybe a problem in expecting everyone to be able to play nicely and get on, because this is a massive, diverse group of people, and people do have different goals. And I think as more and more people begin to realize what's going on, because don't forget, this really started, like a decade ago with radical feminists. That's the root of this movement. But, radical feminists aren't necessarily the gender critical movement at all. Radical feminists have goals, and they have insights, and they have seen things, and they have raised this issue. But there's loads of people who absolutely are not radical feminists who simply agree on this. So I do think that there's a danger in saying, well, let's call this out.
Yeah. Well, I think it's true. We could say, okay, it's not necessarily a united movement, but within people who have the united cause of wanting to put an end to gender identity ideology, I still see that there are people who agree, who are are united with us in that they have that shared goal. And when they behave badly, other people who have that shared goal kind of go out of their way to not call it out. So there is a sense that, okay, sure, we're not part of the same movement, but there's a lot of people getting sort of mulligans.
But there is a little bit more to it as well. I think there is a lot of people who feel the same way I think I do often, which is I don't want to make any kind of comment at all, because the reaction is so terrifying and so powerful, and so not so much that people are giving approval of some of this stuff. Some people are just scared and they don't want to talk about it. There's a lot of different people with different reasons for behaving in different ways. A lot of pain out there.
Well, that's kind of like, it's a reflection in any social movement, right? Because that's how people feel about the gender debate at large. People who aren't in this don't want to get in this because they get called out. So you see kind of echoes on all sides. You sort of, the social media creates certain kinds of patterns of behavior, certain kinds of patterns of systems. And, it happens on all sides. It doesn't matter.
But it also brings together disparate people. I've met some people that I would never have met, that I disagree with on many issues, but I actually have found some common ground on other issues. And I think that that's probably a good thing.
I think so too. But it's telling that we have to sort of
But there are some people, they might be saying some things that I don't necessarily agree with, or that I think it's not really much to do with me. If they have this opinion on something, I'm not going to say to them, you can't talk about this because you're my friend in this area. I'm just going to let them say what they want to say. And, whoever they speak to, you might see a conversation develop. But if I feel that I don't really have much to offer there, I'm just going to say, well, I don't agree with them on this, but I'm not necessarily going to wade in and say, I disagree with you on this. I'm just going to fire it away as, okay, well, that was interesting. I don't necessarily agree with them. And let's see, maybe I'll follow them at some point, and maybe I won't.
Yeah, there's a massive diversity. I've met more people from across the political spectrum and with different viewpoints being involved in this than I have ever in my life, which is great. Like, I'm not saying everything's bad. I'm just saying everything's great, but there's a small thing that's bad, and sometimes even talking about a small thing that's bad makes people very defensive and want to remind everyone that there's all this good stuff. And it's like, of course there's all this good stuff, but there's a little bit of bad stuff too. And it's okay to talk about that, Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's certain things that we can all agree that are, just not the way to engage anyone else in this kind of conversation. I saw on my site a trans widow insulting another trans widow, victim blaming her. I can't have that, I can't have stuff like that, So it's kind of, I don't know. I think, my question about the future of the show is slightly based on that. I just worry a little bit that people are going to entrench themselves a bit more, that the conversation might get more toxic, and if it does, it's going to be very hard to fight against that, it's going to be very hard because our show, despite what it's about, it's quite light, it's kind of a charming chat, really, rather than any kind of serious kind of, and if it comes to a stage where it starts getting too painful to do, then we're probably going to have a conversation. But at the moment, I'm still happy to go on. I'm still really happy that so many people, are kind of encouraging us to go on. So, I'm happy to keep going for a while at least.